Informal food trading is a crucial source of food and income for many people in cities across Africa. But in many places, vendors often find themselves at odds with authorities trying to clean up the inner cities. Over the last decade, city officials in countries like Zimbabwe, South Africa, and Nigeria have launched so-called cleanup operations. Now, these campaigns often result in government shutdowns of informal food markets, traders being arrested and fined, and their goods confiscated. Many informal traders say they're being unfairly targeted and pushed off the streets. Well, so how can Africa's cities fight urban decay without hitting the poor where it hurts most? Here to discuss this with us is Danielle Resnick, a political economist with the International Food Policy Research Institute. Ms. Resnick, welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks for having me, Vincent.
Now, so you know, I really enjoyed living in Africa, enjoyed buying stuff from the streets. It's cool. But the question is, as we just mentioned, how can these cities of Africa that are growing and want to modernize, maintain a clean environment, attract investors, but at the same time be fair to those who want to do small business?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The challenge for African cities is now you have a burgeoning middle class who are interested in transport mobility and clean cities and, of course, safe food. And then you have a huge share of your populations dependent on employment in the informal sector. Predominantly, women in particular are involved in the food sector. And many of the urban poor rely on informal traders for their food source. So it's a major challenge to balance these two constituencies for African governments.
And so, governments find it legitimate, of course, to clean up the cities, to maintain streets that, are eco-friendly, but also healthy. So the issue and the big question is, what can be done to balance the act so that everybody has a share? What should cities do?
So I think there's a number of approaches. One is infrastructure. Infrastructure for the markets in particular. So providing the toilet facilities, providing the clean water, providing proper circulation, venting in these market environments to ensure that food preparation is done in a safe way, to ensure that people are able to wash their hands when they're preparing food. I think secondly, related to that is an institutional issue where many vendors are paying fees to various authorities and they don't know how that money is used and they don't know who's accountable, who they can hold accountable for services. Is it the municipality? Is it the Ministry of Local Government? Is it the Ministry of Health? There's so much overlapping authority over vending and vendors don't know who to actually hold accountable. So I think making that clearer would be a good first step.
Is there any particular town, any particular city across the continent where you can say governments have done certain things that perhaps could be a model to other countries on how to handle this issue?
There's some small-scale things that have been done, particularly on sensitization of food vendors in terms of food preparation practices. In Nairobi, in Kenya, there was a Dairy Traders Association established in 2009. They worked with informal milk vendors to learn how to safely handle informal, particularly raw milk. And they went through a certification, short training course, receive a kind of visible certificate that is supposed to help them avoid fines from the Kenya Dairy Board. So that's kind of a small-scale example. More broadly, in Dakar in Senegal, the mayor had attempted to try to actually buy up land in Dakar to find a kind of build a proper market with the facilities that I was mentioning.
So it's all about, the cities have to plan deliberately and recognize that there is a sub-economy that millions of people depend on. But very quickly, also, there's a mention that these raids we see in the cities are actually based on certain colonial laws. Can you say anything about that?
Yeah, a number of African governments still have these kind of vending and nuisance bylaws, that's often the name for them, that have existed since colonial times when there was a concern of keeping indigenous African populations outside the city at certain parts of the day, particularly at nighttime. These have been maintained, particularly in your former settler countries in East and Southern Africa. They've been maintained and layered onto, so governments have new laws related to street vending. Municipalities have their own laws, and that creates the confusion. You have both kind of city and national laws and historical laws, and they haven't been reconciled.
Sure.
And of course, particularly illiterate food vendors don't understand what the laws are.
Well, we hope these countries, these cities will keep up with the times and recognize this economy. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Vincent.
Yes. Well, Danielle Resnick is a political economist with the International Food Policy Research Institute.